Welcome to In the Garage with Dave and Andres. I'm Andres.
Bonjour. Bienvenue. Willkommen. How do you do?
Bonjour, Dave.
Bonjour. What's up, man?
What's going on? I've been feeling a little toxic, a little masculine lately, so I thought it'd be a good time to talk about toxic masculinity.
I thought you were talking about the song.
Oh,
Maybe that should be the theme song for today. Toxicity?
Toxicity or Toxic by Britney Spears? Because both are pretty good.
Ooh. Maybe a mashup like they do on YouTube?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a wonderful topic. It's definitely a buzz term. And just professionally, I've worked with a lot of these boys that get into that manosphere type of thinking, if you know much of the manosphere.
Uh-huh.
And I get to kind of peel back the curtain and see, well, what's leading to this? Like, where are these thoughts and ideas and behaviors coming from? Because I think first it's important to define what toxic masculinity is, because like everything else, it gets hijacked and then warped.
Right.
Good definition.
Please do.
Okay. So according to WebMD,
Oh.
right? So we're going top tier here. Toxic masculinity, it's an attitude or a set of social guidelines stereotypically associated with manliness that often have a negative impact on men, women, and society. It is not synonymous with typical or biological male traits only. I think it's really important to differentiate toxic masculinity. It's toxic, like it's bad, and the effects are bad from it.
Right.
Being masculine is not bad. It's when it starts to be harmful to you or others or society, that's when we have a problem. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right. I think I can't necessarily disagree with that definition. We were talking, you just mentioned the manosphere, and it's like there's gradation, right? It's not just okay, I want to look jacked, so I'm gonna work out, and that's gonna be my my personality. I'm the workout guy. I care more about my appearance than I do about, really getting to know people, or, I care more about showing off what I have than, having anything of substance to say. That's not bad if you're not like hurting anybody, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the line you got to toe is, once you get into even like hurting yourself, like, okay, I'm going to take crystal meth to lose some weight. Like that's toxic, because you care so much about like your appearance and being, this kind of chiseled sort of dude, that you are actively doing some serious harm to yourself, because what the fuck, it's crystal meth, man. Like your teeth are going to fall out. But at the same time, you're forsaking long-term health for short-term gains.
PSA, crystal meth is not an effective or healthy weight loss drug.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Just throwing that out there for anyone listening. It's a good analogy though, because it also, like most things we talk about, there's a continuum, right? There's a pendulum where like you want to lose weight and get in shape and be healthier and get on a GLP-1 or get a healthy diet. Great. But right when it's becoming unhealthy, now it's affecting you negatively, now it's a problem. Where I know I was asking you before we went on, I think it's good for us to kind of discuss, well, where's that line and where's the differences between like, being masculine or these biological, possibly evolutionary traits that are associated with masculinity or being a man. Are they necessary? Are they being suppressed? The history of men in general, what they've kind of been in society, what changes have happened in society that led to more of these terms or expectations to change. So you being a wonderful historian yourself or learner of history, what have you seen change really between, let's say, like the last two generations? So the World War II generation, your boomers, your hippies in that generation, Gen X up until now.
Well, certainly, it's not as novel of an idea for a woman to be in the workforce. Now, let's just talk about the 20th century, right? It started off probably where women had to pitch in, right? Because everyone had to do their share to make sure that you had enough to eat.
Mhm.
And then, but as the country started becoming more prosperous, um, the jobs tended to go to the men because back then women were actually having children, um, which is
Yeah.
something that they don't do so much anymore. And you could say you could either you could chicken and the egg the whole thing, whether
Yeah.
it's because they're working or they're not because they're not having children, they're working more.
Mhm.
I don't know. Um,
Or even throwing in, some people would argue a bit of it is the unchecked nature of our capitalistic society where you need two incomes to survive in many parts of the country.
yeah, but back then, because the way things worked, like it it was more beneficial for a woman to just be pumping out kids,
Mhm.
and you can put your kid to work at like 6 years old. So they were making up the slack
Yeah.
for the woman not working. You just had to just keep having more kids, um, and so I think it was probably around the time of the 20s where you started to see like the a woman being more of not necessarily equal, but like it's where they stopped being like tied to the house so much, right?
They got
And
the right to vote
yeah,
around that time.
eh,
Right. It's post World War One.
and so like it didn't really affect men so much, right? Men kept being the guys, you know, doing all the construction, doing all this heavy labor, but like once you got into World War II, as the men were actually being conscripted and sent off to two different theaters of war. The women were behind doing like all the heavy labor and stuff. And what wound up happening was that was fine until like the war ended. Men came back and wanted to keep having kids. So then, like, the birth of the middle class happened because now we started having like a bunch of kids again, and women had to be more tied to the household.
Mhm.
So, for men, it was kind of like a very defining generation because people were coming back with PTSD before they knew that, PTSD was a thing.
Yeah.
And so they were more stoic, more quiet, kind of, more of what you associate with, kind of masculinity today.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, you go back to like you talk to conservatives and whatnot, and I don't want to get political, but a lot of them point to this time in American history as where we want to get back to, where like men were men, we were quiet, we went to work, everybody wore a fucking suit,
Mhm.
you had a drinks trolley in your office, and the woman stayed home. You were able to make enough money for her to stay home and cook and clean and provide for the family.
Mhm.
Um, and not for nothing, a lot of this happened because you went out, you had sex, and chances are you got pregnant.
Right.
So with
Yep.
the advent of birth control, that suddenly opened the doors for women to actually be more of a equal or near equal member of society. I say that facetiously because they still don't make necessarily as much as men, and okay, there's a whole lot of reasons why and why not. That's okay, but you know, I think a little bit got taken away once once guys had to start reporting to, women managers and whatnot, and I think there was some sort of resentment that started brewing that
Yeah.
is just sort of bubbled over into today, where now we want to return to that sort of structure, wherein, like, you have a trad wife, your traditional wife, that she's gonna stay at home, cook and clean, deal with the kids. You come home, you deal with the kids as little or as much as you want to, but it doesn't matter. Like, anything over, uh, you know, greeting them in the morning, or greeting them in the evening should be considered a bonus for the child, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's why you hear, or you're familiar with the term, wait until your father gets home, because all you had to do was, like, as a wife, you either threaten that, or realistically, like, you get home, and you don't want to be dealing with the kids. So what do? You beat the shit out of them and hope that they don't do it again. And it's the headache is gone from you. The headache is gone from your wife. And yeah.
I think there's two really good points in there. One of them is that there's always going to be this push pull force, right? This reaction to any kind of change when a certain group of people feel that the change is negatively impacting them. So if you think of, like, after the Civil War and the end of slavery, then you had the invention of the Ku Klux Klan
Mhm.
and Jim Crow, and all, like, that was a reaction. Like, that was their, like, fuck this. Like, you're going to take away our livelihood and this hierarchy and this power structure. Absolutely not. Just like, I think also over the course of the last couple generations, you got, like, the women's lib movement, Roe v. Wade, more women in the workforce, women kind of saying over the last 100 years, like, yeah, we want to be equal to men. And I think a lot of men took that as, well, first, like, I don't want to be fucked over. Second of all, I don't want to be punished or penalized for my male traits.
Right.
And then you get people digging into their positions. And then we're talking about, like, the extremes, right? Like, there's extreme on both sides. So that's one point. I think the other point that's really important, it gets lost because it doesn't get clicks and it's not sexy online. It's nuance,
Hmm.
right? Like, nobody talks about nuance. So you mentioned trad wife. There are women that want to be trad wives. And I bet there's other women that look at that as, well, their husbands are toxically masculine and it's unhealthy and they don't even realize that they're being manipulated or abused. Like, I think there's more nuance. I think there are some women that want a traditional relationship where they're at home taking care of the kids. The guys have those kind of typical masculine guy traits, whatever they are, provider, um, maybe more, I don't know, have more decision making in the home.
Hmm.
And if that works for them, and that's where the nuance comes in, if that works for that couple, great. There's no unhealthy expectations, there's no unhealthy relationship. So it works.
Yeah. And, inversely, right? A, a woman that wants that for herself, as is her right, is going to look for a guy that's going to be the sort of take charge, overtly masculine, sort of like head of the household. They're not going to look for, uh, you know, a progressive,
Right.
sort of, feminist feeling sort of person. If I can say that, I don't fucking know, but like, but yeah, she's going to look for that sort of dude. And so there has to be the ability for dudes to be that guy. Otherwise, this woman is not going to find her ideal mate.
Right.
And it almost sounds toxically masculine to be talking about it like this, but really, it's fucking biology, man.
And and what gets really hard, and people ask me this all the time, and if anyone's taken any psychology course, they talk about nature and nurture,
Mm-hmm.
right? The biological kind of inborn, innate characteristics of someone plus the way that those interact with society and culture, and what has more effect on someone. And you ask 10 experts, they'll tell you 10 different things on what the percentages are or where the arrow kind of points more or less to. But I always think of it in terms of, what works or what doesn't. What works for your relationships. If you being toxically masculine, and we could get into like specifics of it, if you're really finding that that works for you and you're happier because of it, and you have good relationships and you feel actualized and emotionally competent and whole and at peace, first, I very rarely find someone that is like that. But if it's not working, I think it's important to kind of look back and be like, hey, maybe some of my ideas, my thoughts, my behaviors, my grievances, maybe I have to look at like what's caused all this and what's behind all this.
Yeah. Well, and that's a slippery slope down into like incel territory, right?
Yeah.
Where they don't want to necessarily back off of their ideals or their ethics that are possibly toxic, but at the same time they're not finding that mate, so now they're just going to absolutely hate women.
Yeah, you dig in more.
Yeah. um and that shouldn't necessarily be the case, right? If you are, if that is you, if you are that sort of take charge kind of guy, um you shouldn't assume that like every woman wants to be this way.
Right.
And I think therein lies the problem. Is there's I think it becomes toxic once you're making that assumption for every woman, and that's going to get you in a bad place, because it's one thing, not women are not a one size fits all kind of thing. You just got to find the right one that sort of fits your your Cinderella slipper.
I say it all the time. One of my, somebody I work with, it's a great line, there's a lid for every pot.
Hmm.
Physically, socially, communication wise, relationally, all of it. There's a great thing I read also on WebMD that I happen to just kind of, I think it's a nice generalization where they talk about what's really important is, if you want to build the opposite of that, if you want to build healthier men that are comfortable, like, yeah, I have these masculine traits, but like they're not teetering towards unhealthy or toxic or overly aggressive. Their main things they talk about, it's increasing community among men instead of competition, where you don't look at everyone else as your competition. Like, no, you form a brotherhood. You have this multi-generational bonding. So like, it is no more wait till your father gets home and he's just going to beat the shit out of you. It's no, you have a connection with, like, if it's not a father, grandfather, uncle, cousin, older brother, or someone that you can look up to and be like, oh, this is like a good role model and someone that validates me. And then finally, and this I think is the most important thing, because of the rates we talk about suicide, homicide for men versus women, to be free to express emotion and not have that stereotypical view of expressing any emotion other than anger is a sign of weakness or femininity.
Okay.
You were in the military. A lot of people think that's kind of like your hyper masculine petri dish of a society. What did you see there when it came to these kind of traits?
So I think when I was in the military, because you're in it, because you're so ingrained in the whole thing, you don't necessarily see someone have their whole personality taken over as toxic, or at least like the people that I encountered. But I was dealing with more low level enlisted guys. There's competition. It's a melting pot of different cultures from within the country. So you don't necessarily judge them offhand and say, well, this person is toxic. You basically go, wow, wherever this person is from has some fucked up values. I think I told the story of my buddy who got upset when a waitress came and checked on him during lunch,
Yeah.
and he just kind of grumbles like, God, I fucking hate when women talk to me while I'm eating. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
All right. You know, that's that's certainly a view, not one that I've ever had, because I don't think that would have gone well if I'd even told my mother, hey, don't talk to me while I'm fucking eating. Um, but the way that masculinity was portrayed, it wasn't necessarily something that we had to, sort of live up to. It was just, the assumption was that, just being in the army was masculine enough. Um, Everything else was trained into you and trained out of you. So like, you go on a mission. Um, your training is what's supposed to kick in. Your training is what is supposed to actually win the fight. It's not like, whether you're more masculine or not.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you don't know who until the heat of the battle kicks in, and who is going to keep their head and actually remember their training until you're in that situation.
I would love to see if there's any research or numbers or even anecdotal information on women during battle and men during battle, who's kind of shown, and it's hard to observe and measure, who's shown traits to be level-headed, stick to their training, not let emotion or reactions get the better of them. I don't know if there's any data on it, but I know, like, I've met plenty of women and men in the workforce of like leadership positions that the characteristics are all over the map. There wasn't like, oh, the women are more this and the men are more that. Like, not at all.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say that it's an even split. I mean, it depends where you're at, right?
Yeah.
Because women aren't necessarily combat soldiers, but sometimes you don't have the option of determining where the battle is.
That's right.
And I would say in those situations, it becomes a 50-50 thing. Now, the problem that ensues is that because they have, and this might be a bit of a hot take, but because they have different, thresholds for physical fitness, for men and women in the military, you may have to pick up the slack for someone who is not as strong or does not have the same stamina as you might, because, uh, they didn't have to run as fast and as far as you did. So, and I mean, I'm talking about 20 years ago, so I don't know what has changed in those 20 years. I haven't kept up, but back then that was the situation, right? But when it comes to snapping to and like, doing what you're supposed to in in the heat of the moment, yeah, it didn't matter whether you were a guy or a chick. What mattered was like, you could see the different personalities did things, they reacted differently.
I'd even argue, because a lot of people that are in the military are in battle or on the front lines are younger. The older guys are usually leadership or in command. Women's brains develop faster.
Sure.
That's just fact. Their frontal lobes develop quicker. So a 20-year-old woman, her ability to kind of plan ahead, think critically, use those executive skills are better developed than the 20-year-old guy in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
Even the emotional regulation piece of keeping their shit together. I wanted to share, just to kind of pivot real quick, I think it'd be interesting from us and our perspectives. Two middle-aged guys, we're dads, we're I don't think we're extreme in any of our views or thinking or anything else. We're probably representative of a lot of like just normal people. If you've had any thoughts or behaviors you look back on yourself and be like, wow, that was kind of toxic thinking, or that was kind of toxic acting. And I have one, while I give you a minute to think. I know for years when my now wife, then girlfriend, fiance, or even when we were newly married, if I felt they were talking to me with a certain voice tone that was belittling in front of others, I would automatically get this thought of, how dare you embarrass me? No, I'm not going to let some girl talk to me this way in front of my guy friends. You need to shut the fuck up. This is embarrassing. And I felt, and this is used a lot in the manosphere when they talk about it, I felt like powerless
Okay.
and embarrassed. And my thought was like, in my head, it was verbally aggressive. It was to just like shut it down, embarrass her, make her look stupid, feel like she's the villain in the story. And I've gotten better at dealing with it. We both have. And I've shared that with her. Like, it would be different if you were to talk to me with the same voice tone in the same way. I think because, like, you're a guy, you're not my wife. It was like this, I would take it as immediately as disrespect.
And I mean, I would ask you, like, disrespect, or, well, I guess it is a form of disrespect to feel like you're getting your fucking nuts chopped off in front of your buddies.
Right.
Yeah, I could see how that would be upsetting. I mean, is that toxic? I think that's a,
So I think my reaction was almost there. My thought was toxic. My initial thought, because I'm pretty even keeled most of the time, but when I get activated emotionally, it gets extreme pretty fast.
okay.
So my first initial thought is, how dare you? You're the fucking woman here. Like, keep your fucking mouth shut. Don't you dare embarrass me in front of the guys. You don't have that right. We can do that with each other. You can't.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid of everyone else's judgment of like being again, to be controversial, to use the buzz term, like the cuck in the relationship.
Sure.
Right?
You're being henpecked.
There you go. Now I'm much better. And I always advise the guys I talk to, the young guys in relationships, you talk about that later in private if you really want to get the point across. Or if you need to do it in the moment, you ask the person, be like, can I talk to you outside for a minute? And you do it there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky situation. It becomes a matter of learning, having the emotional intelligence to be more situational to for things, because you sometimes you go, hey, wait, can we talk outside? And if your buddies are sitting there and they've already heard you get your fucking nuts chopped off, then they're gonna be like, oh shit, like he's fucking giving it to her, or like there's gonna be more ball busting that happens when you walk back inside. I would imagine, but
and then I think of the opposite. What if I was doing that to her in front of her friends? Would it be the same? Would it be truly equivalent, or is it more acceptable? And luckily, like the relationship I have, like, no problem with her calling me out and being like, why are you being such a fucking dick? And I've learned how to say, like, I don't know, I'm just like in a shitty mood or whatever else, or I thought I was joking around, and then for, my wife to say, like, well, it's not funny. Like, oh, okay. Like, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, yeah, it's all situational, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I mean, that's where I wanted to get more into the topic of perceived toxic masculinity, because there's room for growth, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think as a like prepubescent high school kid, I was a fucking monster. Like there's none of my behavior could have been considered non-toxic. I don't think, like, like I was, extra mean to girls. Why? Because I was probably because I was smaller and I had I was able to say, things that would get laughs. And, I look back now and it's like fucking the term I believe is cringed, right? Like
Yeah.
there was, there's one girl that I'll probably never, this will be like one of those fucking things that like flash through my brain when I'm on my deathbed, like right there, like,
Sure.
I think it was 8th grade. For Valentine's Day, you send out candygrams. And this girl, she was a nice girl, like, like there was nothing wrong with her other than she had the worst acne I think I've ever seen. So like between me and like a couple of other kids that were like also fucking assholes, we bought her a Valentine's Day candygram that just said "Oxecute him," and
Wow.
and it was one of those things where at the time the joke executed perfectly. Like
Sure.
the girls next to her, like were like trying, like she started crying. The girls next to her were like biting their tongues to like not laugh because
Yeah.
also they thought it was funny. And like, uh, yeah, down the road, she wound up taking some kind of fucking acne medication that could have actually damaged her liver. But in the intervening years, like actually have a conversation with her, apologize profusely for what a piece of shit I was, and how, let her know that I did feel bad about that, and, ask for forgiveness. And she was gracious enough to forgive me for it, but holy fuck.
I remind people all the time, because I hear stories like that still, that like kids are brutal, man. Tweens, teens, adolescents, fucking brutal. Like, we don't really teach empathy. Nobody was there to be like, hey, man, before you do this, she probably feels really bad. You are picking the one area that she's probably most sensitive to.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought it'd be a good time for us, speaking of something like that, to play a game.
All right, let's play a game, Dave.
I am going to make a statement, and I want you to tell me if it's toxic, not toxic, or just being a dick.
Okay.
Right? So you could say toxic, not toxic, asshole, or toxic, not toxic, dick. Okay. It's a good one. First one I thought of. Only girls should cry. Or I'll word it different. I see it's maybe worded weird. It's not masculine to cry. It's a feminine trait to cry.
I'm going to say being a dick,
Okay.
because I believe that there are people that just were raised in a way that they're not supposed to. If they're a man, they're not supposed to like show emotion like that, and it has no bearing on like how they interact with other people. It's just kind of coming out of them. So I think between the three, it's not necessarily non-toxic because it's bad for your mental health, but like,
how about then if you cry, you're gay?
That's toxic.
How about if instead of only girls cry, you cry at the movie My Girl?
I mean, that's non-toxic.
Totally non-toxic. And Macaulay Culkin, he's like in his little coffin. It's horrible.
Yeah. All you want to do is get her to the fucking ring.
That's it.
I mean, in recent years, you watch it again and you just kind of laugh because it's fucking funny. What a dumb shit. Like, just run away.
Oh, I still get upset. All right. Toxic, not toxic, or being a dick. All you care about is body count. How many partners you have?
Toxic.
Okay.
But with the caveat that it's a trait that most men still have. So while it may be toxic, it is not out of the ordinary.
Girls with a high body count are sluts.
Once again, toxic because it's hypocritical, but also not uncommon.
Being into the band body count.
Being a dick because you just think it's cool that a rapper is fronting a metal band.
Okay. Telling your girl what she can and can't wear.
Oh, being a dick.
Okay. Uh, Getting rid of your girl's clothes.
Toxic.
Wearing your girl's clothes.
Very common. Oh, toxic, toxic.
Right, sure. So many times I just want to come out of our bedroom wearing one of my wife's shirts, which are 3 sizes too small on me, and walk around like it's perfectly normal. Same thing.
That's one you save for like for if your son or daughter are there with their friends and they're being assholes, and you're like, okay, you want to be an asshole?
Yeah.
Watch what happens to your fucking like reputation when I do this.
I wanted to share some stats because I thought it was kind of interesting, and take it with a grain of salt. Like a lot of these statistics, you have to look what is the sample size, and also you're depending on people's report of information. People are not the most reliable source of even their own information.
Sure.
So this is the Man Box study, if anyone wants to look it up. So according to that, 34% of men in this study believe that they should always have the final say in a relationship. And about half believe that men deserve to know where their girlfriend or wife is at all times.
So 34?
34% believed that they should always have the final say in the relationship, no matter what. Vacation, where money's being spent, if they're having sex or not, it is up to them.
So say how many of those are in relationships?
It does not. That is a great, nuanced question.
I would imagine there's plenty of people that believe that shit, and they're hanging out in incel communities going, I don't know why fucking chicks don't like me, man.
Right. Another stat found that 22% of U.S. men believe they shouldn't have to do any household chores.
Okay.
All right. Where about 44% believe that all they should do is earn money. That's it. That should be there. No chores, no cooking, no cleaning. About a fourth believe that boys should not be taught things like cooking, cleaning, childcare.
Okay.
Now, this is about almost 10 years ago. Or probably they collected the data more than 10 years ago because it takes a few years to kind of compile everything, analyze, and then board review, and then print it or publish it.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how much has changed since COVID. I wonder what effect the Me Too movement had on certain things. I wonder even the effects politically with the overturn of Roe v. Wade, with more kind of extreme political factions. I'm really curious. I love looking at that worldview, that big picture view on like, will I have a better chance finding a partner that wants a traditional 1950s style household if I go to Alabama than if I move to California?
Possible. I mean, and if that data is 10 years old, I would say I was closer to that sort of guy 10 years ago. I was fucking useless around the house 10 years ago. Just because I was used to like living in hotels basically from week to week. So like I just leave my shit lying all over the place. Like dishes, I would just sort of find excuses not to do them. It wasn't until what now I'm on my resume calling my career sabbatical, but like, this stint of being basically living the trad wife life, that I actually take pride in making sure that like my household is cleaner than other people's with wives, just because that's the competitive piece of being a dude. Not necessarily toxic, just I'm a guy and I'm competitive, and it's like, well, fuck you. I'm gonna keep a clean house.
Well, and to kind of reference an old episode, I think it's even partly you wanting to provide for your family as well.
Sure.
And be the provider, which is also, you could say, I mean, you could get rid of all these terms. If it's a caregiver type of role, not masculine, not feminine, you want to provide, whether it's nurturance, a safe environment, a clean environment, I think it's a bit of that too.
I think so, but a lot of it is you take pride. Yeah, like for me, it's personal, right? But I take pride in knowing that yes, like regardless of all the wacky shit, and it's not the biggest house, it's not very spread out. We've got two fucking giant animals just bounding around all the time.
Right.
That
Dogs, not your kid.
yeah. Although my kids are fucking messier than dogs sometimes. Like Jesus Christ. But anyway, like you take pride in your work. Shit, like if you're not holding up your end of the bargain, like how does that work?
I think though, those are things, because again, my brain always goes to prevention, right? Like, how do you prevent that? How do you prevent toxic masculine traits or these other unhealthy traits? I think a lot of it can be cured with teaching effective, healthy communication, the speaking and the listening piece. Where beforehand, you can kind of talk about that. Like, I knew early on that my wife was not good at being organized, putting things where they belong. I knew that. And we've talked about it multiple times, but I know what she's good at. And she knows what I'm good at. And she's kind of had to reorient me and like, you could do the things you're good at. I'll do these other things that I'm good at that you don't like to do.
Yeah.
Like, I fucking hate cleaning toilets. I hate cleaning windows. I don't like cleaning cabinets. Like, I don't think about it, but I like putting shit away. I like having everything where it belongs. So we've communicated, sometimes roughly, but at least understood, like, all right, like, this is what this is going to look like. So it doesn't create that friction of, well, I make more money, therefore you should do more blank.
Sure. And I think we talked about it last week, right? Like toxic masculinity would show itself in me if I insisted, because I was the man, that I handle the finances,
Right.
even though my wife is more capable and more motivated to do so, right? And for me to do it just for the sake of doing it, even though I was not as good at it, you know, while I like to use that excuse, like when she's like, why don't you clean XYZ or go and pick up dog shit in the yard? I say, well, because you're better at doing it. But,
Yeah.
you're shooting yourself in the fucking foot if you're going to be so black and white. Like women do this, men do this.
Yeah.
Ne'er in the middle shall they meet, or however that goes.
And that's where, again, I go back to the nuance. Like, there is no one size fits all. What somebody might think is toxically masculine in a relationship, it might work for the woman in that relationship. They might not think it's toxically masculine. Now, they might have to shift a little bit in their work environment. They might have to shift a little bit in community when they're out and about. But at home, if that's the way it goes and both partners are okay with it and they're both communicating and happy with it and can communicate if they want any changes with one another in a healthy, respectful way, great. We're going to throw another stat out at you.
Okay.
I love stats.
All right. Then I've got some perceived or toxic masculinity questions for you.
Oh, I love it. Okay. This stat, again, the Man Box report, 1/4 of men believe that if needed, a man should use violence to get respect. Not for self-defense, but to get respect.
Okay. That's toxic.
That's high. I didn't think it was going to be 1/4 of guys think that, like, well, a good way to get respect is to just be like physically aggressive or violent.
Once again, that takes context, right? Like you might think that, but not actually act on it. Like, you might think that because you were bullied and like, hey, that fucking guy that beat used to beat the shit out of me every day. Like no one fucked with him because he was scary. And so I guess like that's a good way to get respect. I can't imagine that a quarter of our male population, or at least the quarter of the surveyed population, are actively bullies, thinking like, yeah, this is I got to go like walk over to that fucking dork and give him a fucking noogie.
And I'm sure the percentages are different depending on age ranges,
Mm.
right? I'm sure it like maybe starts low with the younger kids and then starts to get higher and peaks around like teens, 20s, and then 30s, 40s starts to go down a little. But this time you're asking guys over 65, like, no, like absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would say like definitely once yeah, there's legal consequences to just going around fucking
Yeah.
punching people in the face. Like, yeah, you slow it down a little bit.
A lot of, before you get into your questions, a
Sure.
lot of these, it kind of centers around the idea of power, right?
Hmm.
Physical power, social power, financial power, sexual power, where I think a lot of these guys, they talk about red flags, right? The warning signs, like somebody that came from an abusive household or a household where like they were often punished for showing emotion or crying or being sad, physical abuse or even just physical punishment led to more of these toxically masculine traits because they're just repeating it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what's modeled for them.
Mhm.
Like, well, if you cry, you're a fucking pussy. You know, you hear that enough. Yeah, you're going to believe it.
Yeah. And, you know, it could be devastating if you wind up in a situation where you believe that and you wind up crying and holy shit, like you, you may take that out even worse on something smaller and weaker just to kind of bring yourself back to a point of like, well, I ain't no pussy.
Right.
You know? So with that, here's a good question. Is this actual toxic masculinity or perceived toxic masculinity?
Ooh.
All right.
Okay.
Scenario: a man refuses to cry at his father's funeral, standing stone-faced while his siblings weep. Afterward, he goes home and fixes a broken fence in the backyard by himself.
I think it's perceived because I don't think it's as black and white as you have to cry at a funeral. I've met people, and maybe, you know, my answers are all going to be kind of different because this is what I do for a living. I've worked with people, they don't cry until 3 months later.
Mhm.
I live with people where that happened, where at the funeral, there weren't a lot of tears, but like at some event later, some little thing, it all comes out.
Yeah.
What does it say?
You are correct. It is perceived.
Right? Because it's not. Now, if you talk to him later and he said, I felt like crying, but I didn't want to, and I forced myself not to because I wanted to look tough. But then he was harming himself, then it's unhealthy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like some people, based on upbringing, they will process things in their own way. Like,
Yeah.
you know, maybe he's hammering the shit out of that fence a
Yeah.
little harder than he
Yeah.
normally would, but
What's another one you got over
Yeah.
there?
a man tells his partner she can't take a joke after a pattern of making cutting remarks about her appearance in front of their friends.
That's yeah, that's definitely toxic.
Yes, this is
That
emotional abuse with plausible deniability.
Sure.
Using humor as a cover for degradation, especially in public, is a dominance tactic.
I still hear people do it all the time. All the time. Like I was just joking, like I was upset or I was just whatever. Like you're being sensitive, you're right. Be like, yeah, but that person's telling you they don't like it. Maybe they are being sensitive. You need to shut the fuck up now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you don't push. You
Right.
don't like, no. You're just going to have to get a better sense of humor.
Right. Just like vice versa. I always play it to the other side. So she starts making fun of your small dick in front of your friends. You're just being sensitive when you tell her to shut up.
Yeah. But if you punch her in the head, then that's toxic masculine.
Correct. Right. Don't do that.
All right, scenario 3. A man at a bar gets into a stare down with another guy who bumped into him and didn't apologize.
That's actually kind of tough. That's it. It just says stare down.
Stare down.
No fighting, no words.
Doesn't say where it goes
How it
from there,
ends.
how it ends, but I don't.
Definitely, it's more perceived because, again, I look at all of us humans as fucking caveman. We're Neanderthals, man. Like we're animals.
Hmm?
I think women too. It's not just men. I've seen women do this where like woman, spills a drink on another woman by accident at a bar and like right away, it's what the fuck, like,
Yeah.
so I think it's more perceived being toxic.
You're correct, David.
Okay.
Status and respect are central to male social structures. A nonverbal challenge over a slight is an ancient dominance display. Annoying in a bar, but not harmful, usually resolves itself. Now, if it escalates into a fight, that slides toward real.
I see your dogs do it all the time when I come over.
Yeah.
They just kind of stare at each other for a second before one just rips the other one's like throat.
All right. A father tells his 8-year-old son to stop being a baby and toughen up after the boy cries because a friend was mean to him.
Quite toxic and still common.
Sure.
I'm with families all the time where I say about twice a week, either to the kid or the parents, what's wrong with crying? I don't understand. I never understood. What's wrong with crying? It's crying. It's not healthy, hurting yourself. It's not healthy, hurting other people. It's not healthy, getting into drugs and alcohol or stealing or dangerous behavior. Rather you fucking cry. Cry. You're upset, cry. You're sad. You're angry, cry. It's fine. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like to a limit, like when it gets to a point where the reason behind the crying is no longer, I don't know, there's a validation period.
I agree.
I'll give you an example. I'm sure my son will love this. So, and in the fall, he was playing hockey. He was playing against a team where this kid, he had identified this kid as his mortal enemy, this kid that was in his class, but he was on a different team. And in the playoffs, they were playing that kid's team, and they lost. And so my son was crying after the loss. And so I gave him a little bit of time to cry, but he kept going. And I was like, so, what's going on here? And he was like, well, he's just going to think he's better than me now in class. And I really wanted to beat him so that I could, like talk shit to him in class, basically. And I was like, no, that's not acceptable. Like, you lost, you cry, you put your heart out there. You don't cry because you wanted to basically get a one-up over some other kid just because you don't like him. And it's like, what wound up happening is, first of all, we were like, can you have another mortal enemy? Because this kid's parents are like very invested in the school. They put together like all of the giant events, and like, they're like one of the like core families of the school. We're like, dude, get a different mortal enemy, please. But then we found out that the kid was held back because he's on the spectrum, and he just doesn't like interact well with other kids.
Doesn't read cues, doesn't understand social navigation.
And so what I found out was the kid was like kind of being obnoxious and annoying to my son because he actually wanted to be friends with him, and he didn't like know how to go about it the right way. So now they're cool, like now it's not a thing, but in the moment, I had to be like, all right, this is not okay to cry about.
You know what they try to teach a little more of, and anyone that listens to this, I really hope they think of it and promote it to others, because I love the idea. You teach to regulate and communicate, right? Step one, you got to manage your emotions. You got to regulate them. If you just react to your emotion, it's going to be many times an overreaction. Sometimes an underreaction because you're just like embarrassed or scared or whatever else. But you regulate first. Then once you're regulated, then you communicate. Hey, man, like, that's not fucking cool. Like, don't do that. Like, that's really embarrassing, or blah, 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 blah. And then the other person is more able to listen to the message. So some of the stuff they talk about here, just real quick, that I happen to agree with. Educating people on, well, what happens when you shame or try to silence a kid that wants to show they're upset, or guilt them, or physically punish them? What do you think happens later on? Like, short term, it works. Spanking works short term. But and they've done studies on, there's like 50-year longitudinal studies. It works short term only. The negative effects of it far outweigh the positive. And you know, because like you often have to keep spanking or hitting.
Mhm.
It's not changing the behavior long term. If it's a good long term solution, you barely have to do it. For the most part, I don't drive 100 miles on the highway because I know I'll get a ticket every time and I want to keep my money.
Yeah.
It's good punishment. Works. Good reinforcer. Other stuff that they kind of talk about, and again, I just happen to agree with, like, you want more of these healthy relationships. Guys should be hanging out with their group of friends,
Sure.
right? Fucking go to the bars, go to karaoke night, go to trivia night, go to the gym together, like whatever, like get with the other group of girls that they're all friends, y'all go to the mall together and some of you end up dating or hooking up, whatever. Like that's really important. And it scares me with, technology and AI and more parents not letting their kids do this shit. Like, I think that's one of the best ways to prevent some of this. I think a lot of this toxic masculinity is because more and more kids are not hanging out with each other.
Yeah. Right. And they're getting their directions from people who want to live a certain way.
Right.
And because of their means, they're able to get a particular type of girl that is, that's okay with that. But yeah, but they're thinking that like all women should be like that, and all girls should be like that. Which brings me to my next scenario, David.
Ooh, yeah.
A man insists on paying on every date and feels genuine discomfort when his partner or his girlfriend tries to split the check.
It's funny. Right away, I always have questions. My friend, like discomfort, like to the point where he's now like having unhealthy thoughts or behaviors or harmful.
Just
I think it's probably more perceived bordering toxic because if it's discomfort, I think the level of discomfort, because I think like some of it we're trained like, oh, like you're the guy, you should pay, right? So we're
Yeah.
taught culturally.
Yeah, you're more worried about like what's everyone gonna think if they see her splitting the check with me? They're gonna think that I can't afford the date.
Right. Versus I want to be respectful and I want her to know that I'm respectful and take this seriously and have this kind of traditional view of I should pay.
Yeah, and
What does
that
the
takes
answer say?
well, the answer says provider instinct is deeply embedded historically. Discomfort here isn't about domination. It's a man experiencing his role identity being challenged. Worth a conversation, not a character indictment.
Right. That right to the point. Worth a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about it. Be like, like this makes me like really uncomfortable. Like I'm just so used to paying and I don't know, like I'm having a tough time.
Yeah.
Like splitting this check.
Wanting to pay that check so bad that you try to pay with a Target credit card at a restaurant.
Sure. So don't use a Target credit card at a restaurant.
I mean, if they accept it, fine. Fuck it,
or maybe a Target coupon.
All right. Let's see. I want to get you one more.
Sure.
And right now you're batting 1,000, David.
Oh.
So you're doing well.
It's tough.
All right. In this scenario, a man never discusses stress, fear, or vulnerability with his partner of 10 years, not because he's processing it elsewhere, but because genuinely believes that admitting those feelings would make her lose respect for him.
I think that's more toxic. That leans more toxic. Because right when she's going to lose respect for me for opening and sharing, even though we've been in this relationship, then thinking the opposite. If I share these things, she will lose respect for me.
Now, and you're correct, according to this. This isn't stoicism. It's an emotional unavailability driven by shame, and it quietly hollows out the relationship.
Right.
The belief that his partner would abandon him for being human is a distorted self-concept that harms both of them over time. But I don't think this one is as black and white, because what if she is actually that big of a bitch?
It's possible, because I've seen, it's funny, there's this show with couples doing couples therapy.
Okay.
I think it's on Showtime or one of these channels with Dr. Orna. I think that's her name. And there are times a guy is sharing with his partner or wife, and she'll say like, I just hear fucking whining. Like, I'm sorry, like, shut the fuck up. I just hear whining. And the therapist has said to her, be like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, if you're not willing to listen or whatever, I don't know as a therapist, like, what are we doing here? Like, are we looking to make progress? Like, that doesn't help
Yeah.
this relationship. So to your point, yeah, I'm sure there are times that happens.
Yeah, it highlights the fact that just to say that there's such a thing as toxic masculinity, um, that is, that is a black and white sort of thing. Like, no, everything is contextual, right?
Right.
Like, you may not be able to share your emotions with your woman because she is a giant cunt and will actually belittle you for having emotions.
Or I even know, to even get more into the weeds, your partner might not be very good at that and not know what to do with it. Sometimes your partner can't be everything and everyone for you. So maybe you do need to go to your buddy or a priest or a therapist or your boss or whoever else, because like they're just better at it and they can give you what you need and listen a certain way.
Yeah.
But I don't think that makes it toxic. I don't think it makes like, it just is, you're, again, like you said, you're aware of the relationship. Now you can be open with her and you could say, if she says, well, why don't you ever share with me? Like, well, when I do, I don't, it doesn't work out for me the way I want,
Mm,
or it's not kind of filling that need that I'm looking for. Again, getting back to that like communication piece.
right. Because I'm guessing there's probably toxic femininity or whatever, but also, in a situation like that, maybe that woman wants a guy that's just not going to, like, she wants that, you know, that trad male
Right. That
and
hyper
and
masculinized.
and does not have, like you said, the tools to actually deal with someone that has sensitive emotions. It's not necessarily ideal, but yeah, at that point, hey, you know what? Like, find someone that's going to want to listen to you
Right.
and not have to, like, put on this front of, like, fucking statue every time, like, something upsetting happens.
Well, and to your point, you know, you talk about like whatever is this toxic thing, masculinity, femininity, you know, we're talking again, anything on the extreme, sure, it is not going to be healthy. Of course not. Like every woman that I want to sleep with should have to sleep with me because I deserve it, because I'm the fucking man and I'm stronger. And if I want to, I could beat the shit out of her and murder her. So she better sleep with me. Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
That's, but on the flip side, this guy wants to just, you know, he's a little more competitive. He's got maybe more of those, if you want to call them competitive masculine traits, because he likes to win. That in itself doesn't make him toxic. So I do think like many buzzwords, they're going to get overgeneralized very often.
Yeah, and that, like, there are alpha type people, right? There's guys that naturally fit that alpha male role, and it's not necessarily toxic that they're an alpha male. That's just who they are, how they are, and it, like everyone else, just requires a different way to deal with them. Um, and getting going back to the term emotional intelligence. Now, you don't deal with everybody the exact same way.
Yeah.
You recognize situations and you're like, okay, well, this guy responds better to this sort of conversation style, or this woman, you know, she would listen to what I have to say, but I have to do it in a particular way that sort of encapsulates it for her, and if I go, I'm feeling kind of low today, she might just say, like, because she doesn't have the tools, like, well, fucking pussy. That doesn't necessarily make her as fully toxic. It just means that they don't necessarily have the tools to deal with certain styles of,
Guess
like,
like showing empathy
yeah,
or emoting. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming up with such wonderful content. I mean, we could You could probably ask 10 different people what this is. You'll get 10 different answers.
Yeah. And I appreciate the fact that you did not see these questions ahead of time.
Nope.
But you, as a trained psychologist, can answer those things correctly right out of the gate, because there is toxic masculinity out there.
Sure.
There is perception of toxic masculinity, and what you want to do is be comfortable with yourself enough that even if you're perceived to be toxic, you know you're not hurting somebody, and you know you're not hurting yourself with your behaviors.
Yeah. So like always, Andres is going to share how to get in touch with us, but I do want to start adding the caveat that if you are someone that's like struggling with some of this stuff where, well, I was always taught to be quiet and I should suffer silently and it's no one's problem, because I've been hearing more of that from these kind of young adults. I always encourage you, go online. You could find free resources. 988 is the suicide hotline. It's not just for suicide, ideation, or thoughts. It is for anyone that's struggling, and they will put you in touch with anyone else that can be helpful. There are lots of resources specifically for men online. Even if you just Google like men's mental health, you'll find a dozen or so places you can call, people you could talk to online. If people want to get in touch with us, though, how can they find us?
Well, I think the best way, David, is probably reaching us at our Substack, In the Garage with Dave and Andres at substack.com. There we post all of our podcasts, and we post some other stuff from time to time to really flesh out kind of what our mission is here. And sometimes it might even be enlightening. You can email us with any comments you might have. You might have some questions. If this kind of struck home for you, you can email us at inthegaragewithdA. That's all one word, inthegaragewithdA @gmail.com. This podcast is also available anywhere you get fine podcasts, such as Apple and Spotify. We're on YouTube. If you want to see our beautiful faces, sometimes a video works, sometimes it does not. Yeah, we'll see what happens this time around. And that's In the Garage with David Andres on YouTube. And finally, our Instagram. What is our Instagram, David?
I think that's also In the Garage.
Okay.
You can find us on Instagram. We're on Facebook.
Ooh.
Also In the Garage. Yeah. So we're out there.
Yeah. You know, give us a shout. We would love to hear from you. And until then, David, it's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
See you next week.
See you
Bye-bye.
next week.